On 2nd of May 2023, India's fifth largest airline, Go First, suddenly slammed brakes on its operations and grounded 28 aircrafts. While flyers were furious at the sudden cancellation of flights and looked for answers, industry experts saw it coming. Go First was struggling to stay afloat for some time, and about half of its fleet was already grounded by then. The airline pinned the blame on US-made Pratt & Whitney engines and filed for bankruptcy protection. Over 6 months on, it is still struggling to find a bidder. The sole bidder, Naveen Jindal, backed out recently, shattering the last hope of Go First's revival. It has brought back memories of 2019, when Jet Airways had gone bust. At that time, Jet was the country's biggest airline. Its promoter, Naresh Goyal, is now in jail facing allegation of money laundering. In the last 10 years, 8 airlines have disappeared from Indian skies, and the country is staring at duopoly with Indigo and Tata Group Airlines cornering close to 89% market share. Coming back to Go First, the airline bore a hefty price for calling itself a low-cost carrier by taking on heavy debts to pay off aircraft leases, airport fees, and salaries. According to reports, Go First owed about 6,500 crore rupees to financial creditors as of April, and its total liabilities amounted to 11,500 crore rupees. India has witnessed at least 27 scheduled airlines either going bust, merging, or being acquired by another airline since 1994. So why do private airlines fail so often in India?
So there are two parts to this. One is there's a low entry cost in India. I mean, with a capital of about 6-7 million, which is almost 50 odd CR, you can start an airline. But then there's the cost of holding capacity. How much capital do you need to run the business? One is entering the business, other is running the business. And if the dependency is only on sale and leaseback model, then that creates another sort of challenge, which is what we call it becomes a supply-driven planning rather than a demand-driven planning. So you need to acquire more aircraft in order to earn more SLBs, which means you will put pressure on your yields and other factors. So the basic inherent strength of a balance sheet is not there, and as long as that is not there, you will continue to face challenges from one challenge to another, and you'll always be in a sort of a fundraising mode, if I were to put it like that.
That ever since the government allowed private sector airlines to come up in the early 90s, almost 4 of every 5 airlines have shut down. Now, this ranges from an airline operating for a few weeks, months, to Jet Airways, which operated for over 25 years and then shut down. So there are a variety of reasons for it. One, of course, being that when the government allowed the open skies policies in the early 90s, they did not set any rules. Companies which came up overnight, got into the airline business, did not know the basics of aviation industry. So they have given India a bad name. But let's take the last decade. How many airlines have shut down in the last decade? Fewer airlines have come in, and still fewer airlines have shut down. So with the result, the stability factor has now come in, maturity factor has come into the Indian aviation industry.
Most of the now defunct air carriers have either succumbed to high operating costs, particularly air turbine fuel, which is heavily taxed. Wild swings in ATF prices, driven by a host of global and domestic factors, can wreak havoc for any airline business. Fuel constitutes 40% of the total operating cost of airlines. Another big reason, experts say, is airlines offering services at dirt cheap fares due to increased competition, which the companies offset through unbundling of airfares so as to provide passengers the option to enjoy lower and lower fares by means of depriving themselves of additional amenities. Experts believe fundamentally big players getting into the business without adequate amount of foresight and knowledge about the aviation industry have pushed the likes of Kingfisher Airlines into high levels of debt and mismanagement.
So you've got the money from the banks, you've started the airline. In trying to garner market share at the expense of profitability, you never came to know when you've exceeded your potential. Banks, which had no experience of lending to the airlines, because both Air India and Indian Airlines prior to 1990s were self-sufficient or getting money from the government. So the banks kept lending money, restructuring loans, and then we saw airlines shutting down. No, there's a factor which is called the cost of producing a seat. If you are going to charge fare for a sustained period below the cost of producing a seat, can you survive? The only thing is, there was an era in our political system where you could go to the bank repeatedly and keep getting more and more loans, like the Kingfisher example, whether it was the political pressure or other thing, but the reality is, I'm very happy that we have reached a stage where there's stability, there is maturity.
The airline collapse is not limited to India alone. Since the onset of the pandemic, as many as 64 airlines have ceased operations worldwide. Although some restored operations post-bankruptcy, a vast majority never made a comeback. According to media reports, the pandemic has been more damaging to the aviation sector than any recession, war, or terror attack. Experts agree that over the years, the Indian aviation industry has certainly matured. Today, there's more stability and fewer Indian airlines. In the last 3 years, only Akasa Air has been floated, which was backed by Rakesh Jhunjhunwala, an ace investor with deep pockets. And it is being run by seasoned professional Vinay Dubey.
If you like this video, share it and subscribe to Business Standard. For more news, views and insights, log on to www.business-standard.com. Do also follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Telegram and LinkedIn.
She's working her way to the corner office. Business Standard.